Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our improved stream and the beauty of Djuma Game Reserve and sunny South Africa. As you can see, it's a beautiful afternoon. There's beautiful clouds, a bit of blue sky, and well, it's a lovely day for a game drive, so hopefully it will be a successful one. My name is Tristan. On camera today I've got VM the wildebeest. Now remember, this is live and interactive, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or YouTube chat should you want to get hold of us and ask any questions. I hope that you have had a wonderful safari so far with Ralph and Taylor up in the Mara, and hopefully it will be a successful one with myself and Steve on Djuma as well. Now, there were reports of Tingana being seen somewhere on one of the main roads this morning, or during the day, should I say. So we might head on and see if we can try and find where he is and try and see exactly what's going on. Now, what we are going to aim to do is probably try and pick up some of his tracks and then go from there. The Tundi is also, we know, is floating about somewhere. She's left that den this morning. We saw tracks going away from there, so she might be out and about as well. So lots of things to look forward to, and I believe there was a view of the Nkahuma Pride at some point this morning somewhere on one of our cut lines, so we're going to go try and maybe have a little look around for them. Now, as I mentioned just now, it's not just me here on Djuma. Steve is also out and about and rearing to go, so let's go across to him. I believe he's got a feathered friend and he wants to say hello.
Good afternoon and welcome, folks. You're back with us again. Another live broadcast coming to you from the Sabi Sands. And we just had a beautiful little creature there, and he's just taken off. Well, my name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined by Senzo on the camera, and we are out here in a very cool and moderate climate today. With blessings to days like this in January. Normally we are boiling our absolute socks off if you wear socks. And we had a beautiful bird in the tree there, folks, which we have just missed. Let's show you a little picture on the screen here. If you can see that, Senzi. Absolutely beautiful photo. One of the pretty birds we have in the area, the crested barbet, the yellows, the black, the red, and that very versatile and strong beak. These guys are related to the woodpeckers, and they are known for living in cavities in trees. And the tree that we're looking at, we actually had a pair of these birds, and they were actually hanging around the tree, and there's definitely some form of cavity on the other side that we can't quite see, but they both came in and out. They formed little holes, little cavities that either a woodpecker would have formed. They do have the ability to excavate that hole a little bit better, and this is the right time of year. The male and female will form a monogamous pair, and they will line that nest with maybe some feathers and some soft leaves and lay their eggs, the safety of the burrow. Fantastic stuff. We are out in the Sabi Sands, folks. We're heading down towards Chitwa Dam, see if we can pick up any signs of that young prince, Hosana. It would be lovely to see him. It's been a few days, I think. So we're going to continue. Please feel free to send your questions through to @Safari Live or come through on the Twitter feed and let us know what you think, what you'd like this afternoon, and see if we can accommodate. Peeled. I believe Tristan's got something for you. So, a little bit.
Well, I do have something interesting. I've got my favorite little wildebeest herd, and hopefully Footloose is here and with all his friends. I can't remember, what was the name of the other one that Scott saw? I can't remember now, you'll have to remind me, but let's see how many of them are around. I'm hoping they're all here. There should be, I believe, 6 now. When I went on leave there were only 5, but I believe there should be 6, so let's have a look. They're all kind of lying off to my right hand side at the moment, but I want to just go this way because it seems like the babies are on this side. There we go, look at that. There's all the little ones lying together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all here. So there's the little ones all in a little grouping together, and this is very common for baby animals, is that they do spend a lot of time in nursery units, but they're all lounging about. Footloose and friends have had a busy morning by the looks of things and are now having a little nap. But how cool is that to see? It's amazing that they've all survived this long. I kind of betted against the fact that all 6 would be alive and well today. They obviously are quite small, and being out on quarantine are often seen and then hunted by various animals. Have you been rolling in the mud, little one? Yes, you've got mud all over your head, don't you? Is that mud? It looks like mud. Yes, it is. What have you been doing with your head? Have you been playing with each other? It seems as though maybe they had a little fun at the mud wallow, and that one's copied one of the adults and shoved its head deep into the mud. The male wildebeest do it fairly regularly. They'll often kind of just drop their heads down into mud and rub in it, and to accentuate the size of the horns, as well as to add basically a bit of oil onto the ground, which is a scent marking process. So they have a preorbital gland that they do that. But how cool is this to see all of them just lying together? And amazing to think that one of those, I don't know which one is Footloose, was one that we actually saw taking its first steps, which is very, very cool in life. So I'm super glad that we have managed to kind of keep them all around, and hopefully they will grow up throughout the year and we'll continue to see them, and by next year that they'll all be alive still with us. They are funny looking creatures when they're young. The ears are so pointy and big, and that big kind of nose that they've got, and then obviously the long hair that kind of hangs over their face. They look a bit almost as though they're out of the 70s a little bit. That's what I always think when I look at them. They're also got that brown coloration, and you can see very different to the adults. Now, the reason they're so much lighter is because of the grass and those kind of things. If you think of the way that cats see, and the lack of color that is in a cat's vision, then you'll find that these young ones contrast much better by being light like that. If they were dark animals, then they would often contrast heavily against the greenness and against the light colored grass in the winter months. So much better to be light like this, so that they can lie in the grass and camouflage a lot better than what the adults do, and the attention is then drawn to the adults rather than to them. But shame, it seems as though they've had a long day today. Must be tough to be a little wildebeest, and it has been cool weather, so they've been playing around a lot more than normal. Philip, you're wondering who could be a threat to them? Are the sticks and inkahumas around? Well, the inkahumas and sticks were both seen on Djuma yesterday. Neither one actually has come past quarantine just yet, but the inkahuma pride, I believe, are further north of us, just on the Buffelshoek boundary somewhere, and the sticks pride, they were seen again on Arathusa's side this morning. So they're around, and they would be a very big threat, and probably the biggest threat to this herd would actually be Tingana. Now, Tingana has a knack for catching wildebeest. I've seen him once with two fairly large wildebeest in two different trees on each side of the road, so he's pretty good with it, and these little ones would be of perfect size for him to go after. Even Tundi could go after these guys, although I think the herd would probably be able to chase Tundi off, but Tingana definitely could take one of these little ones. So they would be a threat, and hyenas at the other side of things would also be a bit of a threat to them. So the clan, if they decide that they can get to one of these little ones, they will try as well. So that, and then also the thing I've forgotten completely is the wild dogs. They've also been moving around in this area, and so the dogs are always something that you've got to be a little bit careful of as a wildebeest, because, well, they'll chase them around all over the place. Now I'm just going to get rid of a spider web quickly, because...
Hey, that's my spider web.
It's your spider web. Sorry, Vildi. Vildi's shouting at me because it's his spider web. Sorry, Vildi. We'll have to leave your spider web for now. But thank you, little wildebeest. That was very pleasant to see all of you relaxing. I'm sorry if I'm waking you up. There were some big stretches there from some of them. It's amazing how relaxed they've become as well. The first time they were kind of born, they used to run away from us, but now because of all the vehicles, they've become so relaxed with us and really don't care too much. They're just sitting there now and not even getting up, which is quite nice to see. Now, I believe Tax is calling me on the radio, so I'm going to try and chat to him shortly. Cox, you're wondering if wildebeest have a scent when they are calves, or are they scent free? Well, when they're born, of course, there will be a little bit of a scent from the afterbirth and all of those kind of things, and it's why the parent will groom them as quick as possible. So the mother gets in there and tries to groom them, gets rid of all of that liquid that's on them, and tries to just get their coat nice and clean. And on top of that, they then try to move that baby away from the birthplace, because things like leopard and lions and hyenas and wild dogs, if they smell that there's been an animal born there, they'll often try to track it down. Particularly leopards, they do it quite a lot. So there is a bit of a scent on it, and then of course they urinate and they defecate, and so that means that there is still a bit of a smell that is left by little babies. So they're not in which has got a stronger, will be able to pick it up and be able to tell what's going on. Right, now Tax was calling me, but I hear he's now on the radio to somebody else, so I just want to quickly chat to him. See, I believe something has been found. Tax. Are you looking for me? It's exciting news. I'm not going to tell you what it is and who it is, but this is going to be a very, very cool sighting. I'm quite chuffed actually that we've managed to somebody that is on the, and it's not Tundi, so it's still a character that I have a lot of history with and would love to see and haven't seen for quite some time. So this is going to be very cool. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up soon, so we're going to head in that direction and hopefully be able to find him, and hopefully Tux will be able to continue to follow him because it's quite a thick area. So I've given you a hint as to who it might be or what it might be. It's a him, so maybe you guys can guess as to what it is. But while we do that, I believe Ralph is still in the Mara and is still busy driving around, and I think he's got something of interest. I'm not 100% sure what, but either way it'll be pretty because it's the Mara.
Yes, well, thank you, Tristan. You wouldn't believe that we've got lions if you had just joined us right now. But there are 4 lionesses over there somewhere. We believe they might have just gone behind this thicket, but we're still anticipating their trajectory coming towards us, and in between there can also be them lying down a little bit and doing their tactile rubbing up against each other as they've been doing. But for the time being we have lost sight of them. However, they were coming in our direction, so we need to just keep our eyes peeled. And for the moment we are staring at lots of greenery and looking for that little bit of tawny brown color. Sometimes you see a tail flick, and we saw the last tail flick right there in the center of your screen. It's difficult to tell exactly where just by looking at that, but if you look very carefully you might see a tail flick in the next little while as well. And the trouble when you're looking at grass like this, where you know that there were lions there, you start to make shapes of lion in the grass in your imagination, and you keep on thinking that you've seen lions. And I can't tell you how many bushes, how many rocks, how many termite mounds I've imagined are lions. But we always need to investigate, because I'd rather stop for a termite mound than drive away from a hunting lion. So it's always worth a stop, always worth the inkling that you might have spotted one. But we're still using our experience and the calculated guesswork that these lions are coming exactly in this direction. We are perfectly upwind from them, and they were walking straight into the breeze, which was fantastic for their hunt. And so the waiting game continues. As we sit here chasing flies, we need to keep on just scanning around, because they can sometimes also just slip through the grass and then they've actually jumped a bit further than you realize. So I know it's not terribly exciting to be watching lots of trees blowing in the wind and the grass as well, but if you were with us earlier, you know why we're sitting here now, because we had 4 lionesses that are very keen to hunt, and with it being so cool, it's very easily going to take place. And they looked nice and skinny, not overly skinny, they looked very healthy, extremely muscular, but they looked like ready for a feed. And they've left their cubs as well, which is also a good sign, because you normally then realize that they're going to have some intention. But for now, it's lots of greenery and grass. Don't forget to send in your questions and your comments, folks, even if it's just about the plants, but we'll also take what you have on the lions. I'd love to have the interaction This is for all of you, the viewers. We're sitting out here in Kenya in the Maasai Mara, but we'd like to give you the feel that you're sitting with us, watching and waiting for these lions to burst through that thicket, and maybe, hopefully, well, it's always sad to say, but hopefully with a piglet or a pig running just in front of them. And that's what we've tried to anticipate, but you can also crash and burn, that you don't get it right at all. Okay, so we're going to just keep sitting here and we will let you know as soon as some action starts. But in the meantime, let's send you on over to Taylor with a black and white feathery thing.
Oh, hello again, everybody. Sorry about that. Guess what? We have finally solved the puzzle as to who the storks were that were swarming the skies in the Mara Triangle. I was right. It was the Abdim storks, and I can tell that they're Abdim storks because they don't have bright red beaks. And if you look closely on their face, you'll see that they've got a bit of a blue facial skin as well. I don't think they're quite as pretty as the black storks, but still very cool to see. Like I said, something that I haven't seen in a long time. Now, that's not the biggest group I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure it's the same flock that we saw earlier flying around. In Zambia, there must have been thousands and thousands between them and the marabou storks flying around. And I have heard of flocks over 10,000. Can you imagine? They almost like black out the sky, which would be quite cool to see. It's been ages. I don't know why I haven't seen them for such a long time. I mean, I saw a couple the other day in the marsh, but I haven't seen them moving around. Well, I suppose they are migrants, though. They're intra-African non-breeding migrants, so we typically see them around this time of the year. I think they leave... When would they leave? I don't know. Should we guess? February, March. Shall I check? No, I was wrong. I'm looking. Of course, the stuff that I have, though, however, is not for Kenya. Normally around. No, it must be a little bit different here. September, October, December, November, normally for South Africa. So I suppose we're somewhere in between that. However, but very cool to see nonetheless. Now they're moving around in a bit of a quarry at the moment. I think there's even a couple that are having a bit of a fight. Oh, everybody. Oh, look at these ones. The car's arrived now, has made these birds scatter. But it is so cool to see them flying. We've had some great views of birds lately in the sky. I know Manu is a fan of following birds. They're not massive either. I mean, they're bigger than a hardy-dar ibis, but they're not particularly tall, surprisingly. They're only about 80 centimeters, so two and a bit rulers, two and a third, 2/3 of a ruler. Just walking around. I wonder if they're feeding. Yeah, some of them look like they're feeding, like they're looking for insects. They eat a variety of different things, from insects to all sorts of things. Oh, here's another little bird, one that I haven't seen for a while either, three-banded plover. I actually think I wanted to show you one the other day, and then I missed it, and it flew away from me. But a very pretty bird, and one that we see often down at Chitwa Dam, actually at most of the dams in the Sabi Sand. A beautiful little bird, tiny in comparison, of course, to the Abdim stork, however, much quicker, running after very little insects. You're going to be right over to say hello. It's going to, look at it, coming right up to the car every now and then. Quite cool. The birds are quite relaxed. The birds are definitely more relaxed up here than they are in the Sabi Sand. I don't know what the reason for that is, but that's definitely the case. I've never had so many birds so close and nearby my vehicle. Right, shall we create a nice photo opportunity for these guests? Let's do that. Be quite nice to see them fly. Okay, wait, I'll wait for them. Right, sorry, I didn't hear anything that was just said. The comms keep breaking up in my ear. I have no idea where I'm sending you off to, but I think I'm sending you across to Ralph. Let's give it a bash.
Definitely not Ralph Taylor. We're in a different country altogether. But look who we've got. The old man of Djuma in the form of Mvula. How cool is this? I haven't seen him in so long, and it's such a pleasure to be catching up with him. He looks good, actually. He's showing signs of age in the form of his ears, and he's gone a bit kind of sort of scarred on that muzzle and all those kind of things. But still, it's so good to see him. I haven't, like I say, seen him for a couple of months now, so I'm really happy to catch up with him again and to see him. He's always been one of my favorite leopards, and he was such an incredible leopard as a dominant male, and to see him still moving around in this area when everyone wrote him off over 2 years ago when Tingana and Anderson pushed him out is pretty phenomenal. The fact that he's still around absolutely surprises me, and particularly where he is. He's right in the center of Djuma. In fact, he's very close to where Thandi had the previous den, and so it's not really that ideal that he's moving around here, because obviously Thandi's cub is at risk from a male like this. Although at the end of the day, I think Mvula is not really looking to go and kill cubs and try and mate with females and take over territories at this stage. Probably find he's just passing through, but it's wonderful to see him nonetheless, and welcome to have him right on our doorstep once again. I don't think Tingana is going to be too happy about it, but it doesn't matter. It's still nice, like I say, to have him around. Now, he was walking and moving quite a bit, and he's now just gone on to a termite mound, and we know how much he loves termite mounds. He often sits here for long periods of time as he looks for things like warthogs and various other creatures that live inside there. And he's just kind of having a bit of a relax now. He was looking at some impalas that were in the distance, but it seems as though he's not too interested in them at this stage. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering how old Mvula is. So Mvula he must be 12 and a half, going on to, I suppose he'll start be going on to 13 soon, which will be, that's about, I say 12 and a half is where he is at the moment. So he's going to have a long way to go until, well, he's not a long way to go, should I say, sorry, until he actually is really probably beyond his prime. He's, most male leopards in the Sabi Sands will only live to about 12, 13 years old, and he's already approaching that number. The thing is, though, is he still looks really good. His body condition is not bad at all, even though he's a bit scarred up and he's got tatty ears. His neck and his shoulders still look all right, and his teeth are okay, and as long as those are all right, then he should be okay to survive a little bit longer. The problem is there's going to be more and more pressure put on him by all of these other males in the area, and the more we get young males, the harder it's going to be for him to survive. The thing is about Mvula is he must be a very, very clever cat and a sly character, because for him to have done what he's done over the last 2 years and to evade Tingana and Anderson and all of these other dominant male leopards that have really been gunning for him. They've all come and pushed him out and were younger and fitter, and for him to have kind of snuck around in between them and them not to know that he's even been here is really quite something. So he's done incredibly well, and he's really done a good job of being able to kind of stay alive, not only stay alive, but actually thrive in these sections, and it's in testament to how he is as a leopard and how he kind of is able to operate and move around and find what he's looking for. The other interesting thing with him is his change in diet is very drastic. When I was here at Chitwa in 2012, I found that he would eat a lot of bigger animals, so you used to see him going after things like kudu, waterbuck. You used to see him going after young wildebeest, like what we were talking about earlier. And now, when all the kills that I've seen since I came back into this area have all been much smaller, so he's been going after things like porcupines and scrub hares and those kind of things, which is quite interesting. He's kind of going after now slower and sort of smaller animals as he's starting to get a little bit older. And this is what happens, is they start to regress a little bit and start to become animals that unfortunately just don't have the strength to go after big things. Now, it seems that Mvula is going to be fairly sleepy, and for now, the fact that he was moving and the fact that he was kind of looking around is probably good. I'm sure he will start get going again, especially if the sun comes out. But while we be patient and wait for our old man to start moving again, let's go back across to Steve and see what he's up to. I believe he's at Chitwa Dam and got all kinds of feathered friends around him.
Welcome back from spotted cats to spotted birds. We are down at Chitwa Dam, where the sun has slowly emerged behind a bank of clouds behind us. And there on the water's edge, we have a whole lot of birds busy preening and doing what they do to keep clean, free of parasites. We have the black and white there. All of you probably have seen one before, the blacksmith lapwings. We've also got the whistling ducks. You can see the whistling ducks with the white face. There, the second one on the left of the screen. Very white face there. There he is. Busy doing a very good job of cleaning and preening. Very important for ducks to get that preen oil all over their feathers. The preen oil is very water resistant, and it covers their feathers and enables them to be waterproof and to float. Without that, the duck would be a sinking ship, which wouldn't do very well for a bird that requires the water for survival. Then we've got right next to that the elusive and often mostly seen at night water thickney. We do see them at the day, but they are very active at night when they do lots of their calls. And there's a couple pairs of birds around. You see the whistling ducks are in a pair. If we pan a little bit to the right sense, you'll notice there's some more lapwings there, a pair of them, another pair of whistling ducks. So lots of pairs at the moment. It is the breeding season. It is the time when all the animals are getting it on and laying eggs. All the difference between these three species, the thickneys, will be laying eggs, and it'll be a small scrape in the ground, just camouflaged in the rocks, completely camouflaged eggs, whereas the whistling duck's a little bit more elusive. We'll keep it in the grassy verge next to the water's edge or somewhere hidden underneath a bush, but very, very camouflaged and hidden away from the prying eye. But then the lapwing, similar to the thickney, a nice little scrape on the sand. These birds are quite territorial and very, very, very aggressive to anyone approaching the nesting site. I remember years ago coming across the eggs of one of these birds and finding it, and then finally moving back to my guests and bringing them to the eggs, but I couldn't find it again. It took me the better part of 20 minutes to half an hour to find the eggs. They look just like stones on the ground, quite often camouflaged with animal dung, and very, very difficult to relocate. Paula commented that the ducks look like they have a white face with painted white. Indeed, hence the name white-faced whistling ducks. Why their face is white, it's uncertain, but it must be a species-specific thing. They accumulate in quite big aggregations in the non-breeding season, but this time of year you'll find them in breeding pairs. Busy feeding, busy preening, feeding on a little bit of aquatic vegetation there. They are grazers, but we'll also dig into some mollusks or any insects that they might come across, but mainly a grazer. Look at that, the face directly under the water, just scraping in the sand, unearthing any loose vegetable matter that might be there, any small mollusks or something they might be able to grab with their quite sharp and powerful beaks. Ongoing process when the daylight hours are up. Guide Monkey asks if they do really whistle, and most certainly they do whistle. I'm going to play the call for you because it is not I can kind of do it, but it's not a very good whistle of mine. But I will be able to play it for you now. Let's have a listen. It's a very, very characteristic call there. And they've been named white-faced ducks and then white-faced whistling ducks, and you'll get by remembering either one of those names. We know they whistle, we know they're ducks, and they are very, very attractive birds. There's a thickney also. It's had a little bit of a splash in the water, getting all the water off now. Very, very nice for them to bath. The sun's just come out, so it's time for them to do their ablutions. Birds don't want to be wet where they can't dry. It's good to wet yourself if the sun comes out, because then they can dry and then get nice and warm for the evening. It's not an ideal situation to have very wet feathers in the cold evenings. Not that we have very cold evenings in the summer months, but the last couple of days have been relatively chilly. Wonderful time here at Chitwa Dam. We've got some hippos as always in the dam. Source of life, this water point. The sun's coming out. We had a little bit of wind. It was quite cool earlier. The potential for cats to be moving. Michael asks if there are any invasive waterfowl in South Africa, and I'm trying to think. Egyptian geese are localized across the continent. They have moved into areas that they didn't occur before, I'm thinking, and they are quite an aggressive species, but we do find them everywhere these days. I don't know if they're invasive because they are indigenous to the African continent, but I think because of the dams and because of the processes man has created through the damming, there's more dams in South Africa than any other continent, any other country in Africa. So I think with the facilitation of these water points, we've now got a lot more of those type of species. I know the mallard duck, I think that is an invasive species. I don't know if we get many of them in the savanna biome. In the savanna, it's very difficult for certain species to move in. Invasive species moving into an ecosystem that is quite solid and quite dynamic. There's lots of predators, there's lots of prey species. It is difficult for a species to move in when the competition is so high. In an area where there's not so much competition, it's a little bit easier for an invasive to move in. But when it comes to the Kruger Park and the Greater Kruger, it's quite difficult for species to move in purely because of the predator-prey populations. Those animals don't do very, very well. You can hear the guinea fowl calling in the distance, that very... We are going to be carrying on from here, exploring Chitwa for the first time, see if Senzo and myself can make head and tail of this place. It is my first time down here, apart from the interview drive where I spent a good bit of time around the dam. Wonderful to be out and exploring. That's the wonderful thing about this area. There's always somewhere new to go. And we're going to be heading back up north, where I believe my friend Ralph has got some cats for you.
Thanks, Steve. And folks, we've had to move a little bit because we didn't see the lions coming through the thicket, and so we just wanted to double back and make sure that they hadn't gone to ground, which it seems that's exactly what they've done, because that little white dot in the middle of your screen is indeed a lion. So that's where they are. Well, at least one of them. And it seems like she's lying down. Now, we've just been trying to work out if there's another road that's going near to her, and it seems there might be. So in a moment, once we're sure that they're not moving, once again, we're going to try and hot-foot it around and try and get a little bit closer. But unfortunately, for the time being, seems they're catching a little bit of a power nap, so we might need to move along a little bit and see what we find in between here and finding a road that's going towards them. We did look on Google Maps, and it seems like there is a little faint road that's heading there towards them. So we're going to try and find it, but at least we've been able to re-establish where they are exactly. So good job to Manu there in the back. He's got his eagle eyes on, and so we're going to start up and now try and head round towards them. So come along with us and see what we find along the way as well. We'll always stop for that. We know the bet is to loop around and get a bit closer to them. 4 lions on the move, on the hunt, now gone down for a little snooze. That's what's happening here. If you've just joined us, we're on Safari Live and we've been following hunting female lionesses. Now, Shezi, who's a new viewer, she's saying, oh my goodness, that's big lions. Do we know what pride of lions it is? It seems like, now we are taking a bit of a guess, that it's maybe there has been this talk of a marsh breakaway pride. Maybe they're spending a little bit of time away from each other, or the greater marsh pride. But this is 4 females, adult females, and 2 of them at least have got swollen mammary glands. So it seems like they've maybe come together again as the marsh pride. This is their territory here, with the marsh just going to come out in front of us. And so it seems that would make sense. Now, we are getting roads that are leading in that general direction, and very often the little button quails and quails are running in the road as we drive along, just bumping up next to us. Lots of your little grassland birds. We try not I often try and spot them because they do wait until the last second to fly out of the way. I always get scared that I'm going to drive one of them over, but I haven't yet. It's very often the same when I've seen a friend of mine does falconry, and he uses pointers, dogs, so German pointers and English pointers that go in to find the francolin and the game birds, and then he's got his peregrine falcon or lanner falcon on his arm, and once the dogs go on point, which is that they've found the quarry, he takes the hood off the bird and he lets it go up, and obviously try to get a little bit of thermal so it can get some height, and those dogs go almost touching their noses onto the francolin and the spurfowl, but once that bird is up they will not move because they're more scared of the francolin of the falcon than they are of the dog. So it's incredible to see that this francolin just sitting staring at the dog with no problem because that falcon's up in the air. But incredible to watch that. Once the falcon is up high enough, then he will clap the dogs in, and the dogs then bump the francolin up, and he does a hey, 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 and you can hear the bird flying as he closes his wings. It almost sounds like an aeroplane because it and he levels out behind it, and then you just see feathers. So very interesting sport that, but it was started by the Arabs, and a sport of royalty there, but what they used to do was not let the falcon actually kill the birds. They used to take feathers out of whichever bird it had managed to catch and then put it in their hat. So I've even seen a lanner falcon. I've seen a lanner falcon take down, not kill, but take down a Goliath heron. And so that was obviously, that royal guy was quite well thought of. So while we try to relocate these lions and get a better position, folks, let's send you back to Tristan, who's sitting with the old man Mvula.
I am indeed, and the sun has come out now, which is pretty much baking, and he was fast asleep, but I think he's getting too hot, so I wouldn't be surprised he does begin to start moving again and maybe tries to find himself a little bit of shade to go and rest in. But now that we've kind of pulled up alongside of him, you can see that he's starting to show signs of age quite heavily. His body is not looking what it used to. So from the front he looks quite good, but if you look on his hips there, you can see that there's a lot of atrophy of that muscle and that he's lost a lot of weight since the last time I saw him, and he's starting to look a little older and skinnier than he's looked before. So it's not really nice when you see that, but at the end of the day he has had a long innings, and it is a good age for a male leopard, so you can't grumble too much. And well, it also could change. He could get himself 3 or 4 impalas in a row and he'll be absolutely fine again for another couple of months. So hopefully that will be the case, but he's definitely a lot skinnier than the last time I saw him. He's dropped a lot of weight, particularly on those back legs area, and I'll be interested to see when he stands up whether or not he's very skinny or if it's just kind of a angle that he's sitting that's making it look worse than it actually is. But I surmise that he's a little skinnier than we actually think. Either way though, he's still got a massive set of shoulders and neck on him. He's still a beautiful cat, and I was talking to VM now about his right ear area. It looks as though he's been looking for warthog piglets again. Mvula used to love warthog piglets. He used to go after them regularly. And he's got lots of dust around the back side of his ears and his neck area. You can see it's all dirty in that section. So he's managed to somehow shove his head into some hole somewhere looking for some sort of food item. Like I say, he also goes after porcupines a lot. I've seen him going after aardvarks and various other creatures that live inside these mounds and burrows. It's not a uncommon thing to watch him do it, and even his tail looks all dusty as well. He's got kind of, the black is all covered in grey dust, so I don't know what he's been doing or where he's been up to, but it seems as though he's had some sort of fun diving into a hole somewhere. Now, like I say, I'm pretty sure he's getting hot. You can see his breathing has changed as well. He's starting to pant a little bit now. Mouth is open. He's kind of trying to just cool that body down a bit, and the sun is really blazing onto him full steam ahead. And so I think if he's going to move, it will be shortly. I'm pretty certain that he's going to try and find some shade somewhere. I doubt that he's just going to lie right out in the sun. It's never the most pleasant thing to do, but look at those beautiful eyes in this afternoon light. He still has incredible eyes, even though he's an older individual. His eyes are mesmerizing. They kind of that light color, much lighter than most of the other leopards that we see out here. And his lineage is kind of quite long. There's a few males that share the same traits that he's got, and it's why Tumba always is a bit of an enigma to me, because theoretically Mvula didn't mate with Thandi at that period, so that when Tumba was born, but Tumba has so many traits of Mvula, it's scary. He's got the big ears, he's got the light colored eyes, and his general shape of his face is very similar to that of Mvula and that of a lot of Mvula's offspring. So if you compare Tumba to Wabayiza and to Bahuti and some of the others, they all look very similar. So you see he's going to yawn now, and that's often a sign that he might stand up and go. You'll also notice he's got a broken right canine. Now that's been like that for many months. It's the first time I noticed it was right at the beginning of the year, but there we go, up he gets, and I'm pretty sure he's going to try and find himself some shade. So he is a little skinny. You can see he's not as bad as I actually thought when he was lying down. I thought he would be a lot skinnier than that, but he's got one or two little wounds on him, which is not ideal. He's got like a little cut on him. Are you going to lie right in front of the car? I can't even see him. He's somewhere in that section over there. Now, is he going to drink maybe? I'm not sure. I'm trying to just lean out the car to try and see. Hopefully I don't fall. The last time we did that we had a bit of an issue, but at least VM can see him now. I just want him to see if he's going to settle before I reposition myself, but it looks as though he might decide to go and have a little bit of a drink of water. There's also a nice shady section under one of these trees, and so maybe that's where he's headed. But let's see, maybe if we just go back slightly, Vildi. So you can see he's been around vehicles for quite some time, has Mvula, and so it doesn't really stress him too much for us to kind of move a little bit. But I just want to try and give him a bit of space. It's never comfortable to be that close to a leopard, and especially when there's a little bit of shade that he's trying to find. You can see he's lying right next to some water. Right, now that he's down properly, now I can reposition nicely and we can get a better view of him. So we're just going to turn the car a little bit. There we go, Vim. That will be a lot easier. So he's found himself a small sliver of shade just on the edge of a mud wallow, and you can see why it's so tough to find leopards at the moment. At this time of the year, we struggle a lot more, because if you look how much water is in the bush here, and we were talking about it just now with Vim, is that there's very little sign of his tracks on the road, and so if you miss the tracks and he walks into a section like this, because of how dense it is and the fact that there is water here, it's going to make it really very difficult, to find him. You'd have to try and kind of find mud wallow to mud wallow, but he's definitely on the skinnier side, and that's very kind of him to have walked the way he did, to go and have a drink of water, because he's now given us a beautiful view of him lapping up that nice cool water from the side. Shame boy, are you hot? Not surprised. He lay in the sun for quite some time before he decided to get up and move, and maybe in his younger days he would have moved a lot quicker, but when they're older like this, they do sometimes just sit and take it easy for a longer period, and then that body temperature goes up quite drastically, and they then have to obviously try and cool down. So water is great for him, and a little bit of shade there to drink from as well, which is perfect. So I'm pretty sure he's going to have a nice long drink before he'll flop down in the shade again and wait for it to get a bit cooler before he starts to try and look for a meal. He definitely will be looking for a meal at some point. Now if you look just above his left front leg, you'll see that there is a bit of a wound that is just on there. It's not a very big one, but right there in the middle there's a little kind of cut that's on that area. Now I believe my comms are not working, which is very true here, so we'll try and sort that out quickly. Let's have a look. Hold on, Louise, we have a pulled out earpiece. There we go. Now we're back in comms, so Louise can start talking to us again, which will be good. So he's probably going to find himself that shady section there, and he's going to lie down, I would imagine. It's a perfect spot for him to go. There we go, Louise, I can hear you now. Sorry, my earpiece pulled out when we repositioned the car, so that's why I couldn't hear you. First Lady Shah, you're wondering if Tingana knows that Mvula is hanging around. In all likely, probably he does know that there are males around. Whether he knows it's Mvula, I'm not quite sure. Tingana will know that there's pressure on him at the moment from multiple different males. He's got issues with this young male that's around. He's got a situation where he's got, Mvula, there's quarantine, there's Fasana, there's Tamba, so it's not just Mvula that's around, and Tingana knows that, so he's going to be moving around quite a lot to try and sort of figure out who it is and try and push them out. The thing about Mvula is he's very clever, is that he doesn't scent mark, he doesn't vocalize, he doesn't cause any kind of stir that would attract Tingana to that area and cause him to try and kind of chase after him. So he's clever in that he just sort of is like a ghost, and he just moves around in here without trying to attract too much attention to himself. But definitely if Tingana walked down the road now, he would have picked up Mvula's scent and then followed it to try and see where he is. But he's found himself a nice little shady spot. I don't think he's going to be up for much longer. I think he's probably going to go crashing down for a little nap. But I'll try and reposition to see if I can get a better view of him and exactly where he's sort of lying down. Hopefully we'll be able to see him nice and clearly. While I do that, and while I find a better spot to sit, let's go back across to Steve, who is taking a leaf out of Steph's book and he seems to be admiring some big, tall trees.
Welcome back from very old leopards, apparently, to immovable trees. We have decided to stop and give you a little glimpse at something quite special. I think it's special because these trees are part of the landscape. I know James spoke quite extensively about this tree this morning, and those of you out there, I'm sure, can identify it quite quickly. Looking at the bark of the tree, quite obvious to see the shape. First of all, the tree just needs a little cuddle, because that's what trees do. You can feel the energy in trees. They do talk to you. If you believe that or not, it's up to you. But this beautiful tree, look at the bark. It looks like someone's been hitting golf balls against the bark. It leads to this sort of indented sort of bark shape. I can't give you a better explanation than that, but think of the golf balls swinging and hitting that. Beautiful trees for leopards to climb. I'm sure you've all seen it before, and if not, these are the places where you find a leopard just stretched out, legs over the branches, just surveying the landscape. Something that, if we could, we would do. I would choose a tree like this to hide in. But the reason I stopped, because this tree is a favorite for elephants, as we know, not just because of the fruits, but also because of the bark. And over here you can actually see where the bark has been damaged by the tusk of an elephant. The elephant stuck its tusk here and ripped that bark off. And what's very interesting about it is elephants, if you think chickens are clever or elephants aren't clever, think about chickens. Chickens will self-medicate. If you plant medicinal plants in your garden, chickens will physically eat those things that they need to deworm themselves, to add whatever medicinal value they need. So I'm pretty sure elephants are smarter than chickens. And this tree, the bark itself, if you ever have an issue with a bee sting or something that you need antihistamine for, you can take some of this bark. I'm not going to damage the tree now. Take some of the bark, just stick it in, pull it off. The cambium itself, it's very red and orange inside. And what the elephant has done is just taken a strip of that. Maybe he wasn't feeling very well, maybe had some issues inside, maybe eaten something wasn't very tolerant of. Anti-inflammatories inside, elephant feels good. But one of the reasons for me stopping is not to talk about elephants, not to talk really about the marula tree, but to harp on back to a bird like the crested barbet, birds like the woodpeckers. Because what is the purpose of bark? Folks, what is the purpose of bark? Bark in the savanna industry, when there's lots of grass here, the fire comes up, and this is fire resistant. Fire resistant, it's also insect resistant. It prevents it from losing any moisture to the atmosphere. But now what has happened? There is a hole. We're not seeing too much activity here at the moment, but this wood is now exposed. You're going to get wood borers like your wood boring beetles, your giant longhorn beetle, which will actually burrow in here with a very long sort of proboscis-like depository, and then it lay eggs inside, and then these grubs will grow inside, and that is what the woodpeckers are going for. Woodpeckers will land on a branch like this, they will listen, and then they'll peck. tree's not too dead at the moment, but the longhorn beetles and activity like that inside will actually lead to branches of the wood dying and potentially even the branch falling off. But then what that leads to is activity of a hole forming. The barbet can come along, honey guides who are parasites of certain birds, your starlings. It's about 29 species that potentially in a couple of years, when this activity opens up and we get a little niche, we'll have bird species that are able to breed and colonize in just one small marula tree that we have on the reserve. There are many of them. There is much activity, much elephant activity. There's some elephant dung just here at my feet, if you can see down here. And most of what is in the dung right now is grass. So the damage that happens, this normally happens in the winter times when the condition's gone, there's hardly any grass, there's hardly any leaves, the vegetation is just at a very poor quality. Elephants need to move around and they need to gather medicinal properties in the vegetation to make them feel better. We all know in winter time we start getting a bit sick, we start feeling a little bit ill, we need to dose up. If I had a lighter with me now, which unfortunately I don't, I would burn this for you and I would give Senzo a little ceremony. You burn this and you inhale it, and you burn it around you, and the Sangomas, the Inyangas, the traditional healers of the area actually use this stuff for medicinal healing. Because what is the elephant? An elephant is a massive medicinal plant collector and then just deposits it wherever. As I say that in the summer months, the grass component is not that great in medicinal value, but when you find elephant dung, it's very orange, it's very red. There's huge amounts of medicinal value in there with their very poor digestive system. We can access out of that. Lots of animals are reliant on that. But as we talk more and more about the environment here, we are going to maybe just climb back on the vehicle, see if we can keep going, get another update on the radio. We are in Chitwa still exploring. It is warming up a little bit. I don't think leopards are going to be doing too much activity, so we've got to keep our eyes open for marula trees like this with potentially a cat sprawled inside or maybe underneath. Let's see how we go. We're going to jump back on. Senz, are you ready? Very good, very good. Not only is the marula tree fantastic for all of that, it is great for shade. If I'd parked us just a few meters forward, Senzo would have been a little bit more comfortable in the shade of the tree. And that is important in the savanna ecosystem, is that the shade that we have here is what enables the herbivores, especially the ruminants, to where to shelter. You feed out there in the ecosystem, you feed, and then you need to lie down in the shade. If we didn't have shade, we wouldn't have the diversity of the herbivore species that we have. So the savanna, grassland, forest, all mixed together. Ancient forests were once here, but climate change changed that, and that's why we have the large herbivores that we have. That's a lovely breeze that we have now coming through. And we're going to be... Okay, so a wonderful tree. Oh, there's an impala. Can you see it? There he runs, she runs. She's a little bit skittish. She's on her own. But we're going to link up to the north where we have an animal that enjoys the water. And I think Taylor's got something with a ring on its bum.
We do have Waterbuck in the Mara. That's exactly what we've got. We've got quite a big group of females here, and they're all starting to look rather fat. So I suppose after the activities we've been witnessing, mating Waterbuck, I've seen that a couple of times, they should be expecting. Now, typically Waterbuck will give birth in the summer, much like the impala do. However, it's only a little bit just after the impala, and that's of course down in South Africa. So whether or not it's going to be the same here, I'm not so sure. I would imagine they would give birth between the rainy seasons, the short rains and then the big rains, because that's going to be when the vegetation will be most lush, and of course, well, the conditions are just really, really good for the waterbuck, so the chances of survival for those youngsters will be quite good. But I'm not exactly sure when it will be. They don't look overly pregnant just yet, but you can definitely start to see a bulge in their bellies. But we'll watch them swell, and we'll soon see their mammary glands start to swell up too, and that'll be another indication. But just munching away on the reeds, on the grass. They love living in the marsh at the moment. I'm sure they'll be happy that it was topped up a little bit. But there's some cars coming, or there's a car coming that's going to drive right through our shot in a minute. So before that even happens, let's carry on. The Mara seems to not be as busy as what it has been, which is quite nice. I think everybody's gone home. Thank you, Waterbuck. Bye, Waterbuck. Actually, there's one female I want to show you. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I hope I can get out. Yes, I'm just going to go backwards. And then I want to look at this waterbuck here that's staring at me. That's slid into a bit of a marshy spot trying to move off the road for the cars. She looks particularly pregnant. Out of all of them here, she's the fattest of the lot. You're beautiful. And the light is lovely now too. Just starting to go a little bit golden. We're not going to have a proper sunset or anything like that, unfortunately, because of that very thick haze out at the moment. Also quite noisy eaters too. Not quite like the zebra though. I think the zebras and the elephants win the award for being the loudest chewers. Wonderful. I'm just starting to look. The mammary glands are starting to swell just slightly. Oh, no, not again. Try and jump out of here quickly. Now Paula, great question. We're going to keep moving and see what else we can get up along the way. You're wondering how long are waterbucks pregnant for? What's their gestation period? It's about 9 months, 8.5, 9 months or so. So it's a relatively long time. And it's weird because I saw some of the waterbuck were mating when I first arrived, and then I've still seen males chasing after the girls and trying to mate with them. So that's like a 4-month difference. And what we do know happens is that some animals, there's almost like 3 times that they give birth within a space of a few months. In the beginning, you know, the ones that are keen and early, and then the bulk of the antelope and gazelle species, and then again you'll get some that are late. I've even seen some impalas that are all swollen again, like they're about to give birth. So it's really interesting. And a few Thompson's gazelles, they haven't given birth either. So I suppose the conditions are so great here. Like I said, anywhere from September, October, right through until you get the big rains in April, May. You know, that time sort of in between will be a great time to have a little one bounding around. So I suppose it could be off for a few months. It's very quiet. Oh, we did pass our nest with that crowned crane. Do you know that I had to say grey crowned crane, grey crowned crane, grey crowned crane like 100 times? Poor Archie had to listen to me for 5 minutes as I said this, because I couldn't say it when we saw those chicks. I was too overwhelmed. I can say it now though. So I saw that nest I was telling you about near hippo pools, and that female's still incubating those eggs. So that's good news. So she's not standing up. So it'll just be interesting to see, and we'll keep checking every time we go past her to be able to see exactly how big they are when they're born. I don't know how much they would weigh or how big they would be in size. I mean, I'm just looking at them. I've never actually held one. I've held an ostrich chick before, many ostrich chicks. We used to find them wandering around on their own all the time, and then we tried to raise them, but we had one that had a gammy leg that unfortunately didn't make it. We had that for a little while too. Lots of ostrich in the Eastern Cape. Hang on. Archie's there, car behind me. Yeah, I can do the reverse. Remember those birds I was trying to find you the last 2 days that have been avoiding me? And I just very quickly want to show you, because I was telling you about them and how they make beautiful sounds all through the night outside at Sila's camp in the Maasai Mara National Reserve, and here they sit on this little shrub. Finally, the Rupel's starling eating some delicious berries. Well, it's quite nice to see. Anyways, Ralph, however, has got something very exciting for you, and it's not just one. Apparently, there are 3.
Thanks, Taylor. Yep. And I'm going to actually let the viewers tell me what we are looking at. So, what are we looking at, folks? It's in the long grass. There's 3 of them, and it's quite difficult to make out exactly what they are. But let's see who sends it in first. send it to the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube live chat. Let's hear your guesses, and I'll tell you if you're right. It's quite unusual to be finding them in this kind of habitat, especially in my experience. But we do see them in the Mara quite regularly, walking around in the grassland, but quite unusual. Must be down to the richness of the grazing available. Come on, folks, what are we looking at? Let's hear it. There is indeed 3 of them. There's one very big one there. There's a much smaller one just off on the left. And then there's one medium-sized one just in front of this, a very big one. No guesses? Come on, folks. So Phil, Joe and Cecilia, you are the winners. Yes, indeed, it is Rhino, and it's black Rhino, to be specific, but you got it spot on. Look at that, in the long grass, eh? And who would have guessed it? Seeing 3 black Rhino in the open plains, nothing else for miles, except grass, and more grass. But what a wonderful sighting all the same. They're not very far off, but they're very well hidden in the grass. And I think that's probably why they're quite happy just to stay there, because you normally find them in the thickets. And during the day, they are generally quite immobile, and they do like to snooze a bit, and then a little bit more active at night. And that's a little baby there. You can see his funnel-shaped ears, always listening, turning them every which way. At the moment, I think he's trying to keep the flies at bay as well. But it looks like they are doing what black rhino do during the day and resting, maybe even snoozing. But in the very long grass. And there at least we got to see his head, but he's now doing exactly what the lions did to us, and he's gone and laid down. But it looks like that's mommy and calf there. And what happens with black rhino is it's the same with white rhino. Black rhino not quite as much as with white rhino. White rhino, they have a very strong motherly bond with the calves. And you can find 2, sometimes even 3 calves of different age groups staying with mommy. But what happens then is when the female comes into estrus, a bull will come around, but he'll chase off that calf. So the calf then disappears sort of onto the fringes and just stays out of harm's way while he then courts the mother. And once they've done their thing, then baby is allowed back. Well, the bull sort of generally moves off, and then the calf can move back. Now, Fezzi, you're asking, aren't black rhino more aggressive than white rhino? Absolutely, Fezzi. And to be straight to the point, black rhino is one of the big 5, not white rhino. We spoke about this the other day, and I said to everybody that black rhino was chosen as one of the big 5 because of its aggressive nature and how dangerous it is. But people generally use the generic name rhino to say that they have big 5 animals on their reserve, but it's not white rhino. It was chosen as such for the 5 most dangerous animals to hunters, which was leopard, lion, buffalo, elephant, and black rhino, not white rhino. So the next time you go on safari and they tell you that they've got big 5 on their reserve, ask them where the black rhino are. If they can't tell you and they say no, they've got white rhino, well, they're not being totally honest, are they? But here we are with one of the big 5, and Lovely to see. We don't have any white rhino here in the Mara. It's only the black rhino, and this is Diceros bicornis bicornis, the larger version of the black rhino. He's almost the size of a white rhino, and it's the same ones that you get in Namibia, and that is where you have the largest population of black rhino. Melissa, you're wondering if it's possible for rhino to have twins. I think it probably is possible, very rare, but I'm sure there has been some cases. Normally you have one baby, but there can be very rare cases of two. And I know with big animals like this, when there is the case of twins, very often there can be the case where they're either both stillborn or one of them stillborn or very weak. I don't know if it's as a result of being in the womb and there's not enough space, or they don't get enough nutrients, or what. I'm not a vet and I'm not a doctor, so I can't explain that to you, but I'm pretty sure that I have read that and researched on it. And it seems that very rare cases of twins, and even rarer for both of them to survive. But here we are with one little youngster. And like I was saying, so this being the Diceros bicornis bicornis, the really big black rhino, in the KwaZulu-Natal region of South Africa, we get the Diceros bicornis minor, which is also black rhino, but a slight variation, and they're a lot smaller than these black rhino. So as we look over the top of the grass here and try and make out the shapes of the black rhino, there's the youngster walking through. You could just see the silhouette of his horns. But I think we're going to send you on south, all the way back to South Africa, because Steve is waiting to show you a whole myriad of animals.
A myriad indeed. Thank you, Ralph. This is unbelievable to see this amount of game together. I must admit, I would love to be seeing some black rhino right now. They are very, very special and very hard to come by. I'd love to have another look at them. But look at this, folks. We're in the open clearing just, let me get my bearings, just north, I think, no, south of Chitwa Dam. And we've got zebra, many zebra, well, maybe two small harems, lots of impala, and then a huge accumulation of waterbuck. Look at all these impala. The babies, they are definitely breeding. If anyone is missing impala on the Sabi Sands, they're all here at Chitwa Dam. And going back to what Taylor was talking about in the north about the waterbuck, we have waterbuck here. I don't know the genetic difference. I've never been up north, but the difference you can clearly see there on the bottom of the waterbuck. We've got only a single ring here, and the inside is grey, whereas north, I believe, it is a completely white circle, and the inside is the same colour. Why exactly they have a difference, I have absolutely no idea, but it is something worth investigating. But to go back to the story of the waterbuck and the white ring on the tail, my mother told me as a very young boy that it is the ring of the waterbuck because it was the first animal on Noah's Ark to sit on the toilet, and yet it got painted, and so it got a very white bum. So that is quite a nice story to remember from a child. And there we have waterbuck ruminating on top of the termite mound. Not only do predators use it for a vantage point, we have prey animals doing it too. You see he's chewing gum? Not actually chewing gum, folks. She is busy ruminating, and how I can tell it's a she is lacking those horns on the top. But it's difficult to see clearly, but with a ruminating animal, they regurgitate the cud. You can see the cheeks are quite full there. And if we can get right up on the neck, Sens, can you? Is that about as far as you can go? Okay, right up on the neck, if you see, it's difficult with the waterbuck because they're so furry. But if you look closely, as soon as it stops chewing, see if you can see a movement down the throat, the front of the throat. Let's see, we're going to count it down. 3, 2, turn to the right. Okay, this is not working very well. But on a lot of animals, giraffe included, you can actually see that bolus going from the chewing in the mouth, and then they swallow, it goes down to the belly, and then they regurgitate again once into the mouth. It's quite a funny process to watch. They are basically vomiting in their mouth, folks, which doesn't sound that attractive to many people, but it is what these herbivores do, and the ruminants do it to get maximum benefit out of the vegetation. So what these waterbuck have done is they were feeding, and then they come and stand in a shady spot, or in the case of that individual, that male of theirs just stood up. He's now walking. You can tell the really big horns of the male. We got a whiff of him just now. It's very, very strong odor. Smells very, very potent, like very cheap perfume. Very cheap perfume, not something anyone would ever want to buy, but apparently the ladies seem to like it. And there he goes. Look at those incredibly large horns. And those horns, folks, are for fighting, for rights to females. He's far bigger than the other ones we've seen, and he's also always a bit tentative. You see how he walks a few paces and stops, ears alert, sniffing. The wind is coming across him, so he would be picking up the smell of any predator in the area. But he's leaving the safety of this large group. And when you're in a large group like this, as I said yesterday, it's very easy to relax because someone is always watching. But he's going off on his own there, which is not a good idea. And then we have the zebras, a harem of zebra. This would only see one in picture now. There would be a dominant male. There would be a dominant male and then a couple females that he would have included in his harem. And obviously the older and more dominant the male, the more females he has. So folks, we're going to stay here with these animals and see if anything happens. We are still on the search for Hosana and any activity. Herbivores are very good indicators of the presence of leopards, and when there are numbers like this, we will keep our ears and eyes open. I'm going to be sending you across to Tristan. I'm not quite sure what he's up to, but I'm sure it's going to be very exciting.
Well, no, not quite. Willa is fast asleep, so very little excitement at this stage. The old man has walked quite a long way since you last saw us. He's walked long and hard, and of course now that it's time for you guys to come and see him walking, he's now flopped over and had a good nap. So now he's decided he's found himself a comfortable spot. This is where he's going to rest for a while longer, but like I say, we've walked almost to Philemon's Dip now, so he's come from Twin Dam side all the way through this block and kind of negotiate through that way, and has decided that this is where he's going to rest for now. I wonder if it's maybe because there's some sort of signs of holes in the ground here, so maybe there's warthogs or porcupines or something that he's picked up on that he's decided he's going to nap here. You can see there's a few holes there that he's lying very close to, and he kind of walked past it and then turned and came and lay back in this area. So I'm not sure if it's that or if it's just a nice cool spot. The thing is though, is when the sun is out, it is hitting him on the side, and so I wonder if he'll get hot again like he did on that termite mound and then start to move around and maybe start heading down towards sort of Philemon's Dip side itself, or even maybe up to Quarantine. If he goes up to Quarantine, well, we know that there's a number of wildebeest up there that he could potentially go after. Whether or not he's capable of bringing down a young wildebeest in his condition, I'm not quite sure. I would imagine he would be. I mean, he's still got a lot of power in those front legs, and when the adrenaline is pumping, he'll definitely be able to still run quite quickly and, you know, be able to grab things. So I'm pretty sure he would go after those young ones, and so maybe he'll head up that way and get himself a meal. As much as I would want Footloose and them to survive, it would be also nice for Mvula to get himself a substantial meal at some point. It's definitely needed, and if he's going to survive the summer period, he's going to need to eat very, very well. What surprises me though is that I would have thought, given the amount of lambs and baby animals that we've had around, an old experienced male like this would have taken advantage of that, and that he would have been in slightly better condition than what he is right now. And suppose we are late in the birthing season now for things like impalas, and maybe this next wave of impala births that we will get, because remember there's almost 2 sort of ruts within the impala population, and particularly this last year we had them rutting very late, all the way into June, July, which would mean that we would start to see another couple births around this sort of period, so January, February. So maybe he can take advantage of those and be able to get himself a good meal at some point. But he'll need a couple baby impalas to try and get some of that weight back on once again, because it's going to just keep getting worse the longer he doesn't eat, and so he's going to need to find some sort of food at some point. You'll find he'll also start regressing back to what we saw from Hosana when he was younger, is that he was, eating terrapins and tortoises and monitor lizards. So you'll find Mvula will start going after those things just to try and get by until such time as he can get himself something slightly bigger, and he's probably going to start scavenging. So even if he comes across somebody like Tundi on a kill or Shadow on a kill, you might find that he'll scavenge from them and try and take it. And like what we saw with the wild dogs a few weeks ago with Noel, where he came running in to try and grab them. Right, well, he's still sleepy. He's still taking it very easy. There's a few flies bugging his ears, and the sun hopefully is going to come out again just now, which might drive him to start walking once again. If he does, though, it would be quite nice. It would be nice if he moves out into a slightly better spot than he's lying at the moment, because he's got a bit of a difficult visual. But while we sit here and wait, let's go back across to the Mara and Taylor with a beautiful view.
Look how gorgeous this is. I didn't think we were going to see much of the sun today, but it has just poked its head out just to say good night, I suppose, out here in the Mara, because in the next 5 to 8 minutes, somewhere around there, it's going to drop beyond the Olololo escarpment. But it is a very, very pretty scene out here today, with the shades of pink and purple, and then of course the dark blue that the Olololo escarpment is this evening, and all the Balanites trees. It's very, very pretty. I think we're going to start seeing lots and lots of elephants and baboons, even more so in this area, because some of these Balanites trees have got some fruit on them again, and they're going to want to gobble that up, which will be quite nice for them. There's every now and then there's a few starlings flying around as well. There's lots of Hildebrand starlings out today. And there was some superb as well. You often see both of those species together. They look very similar. Are you going to fly? Yeah, of course they are. Too quick for me, unfortunately. The Hildebrand starlings are just flying past us. They don't want to sit still on the road. Unlike those Abdim storks and those grey-crowned cranes, which are all behaving very, very well this afternoon. I'm trying to figure out what on earth is going on with the weather. I think we might have a clearer day tomorrow, although no, there's just the next set of fogs and clouds and all sorts of things coming in from the north and from the east. But at least it's starting to look clear. That's gorgeous. Let's have another view. Wow, it's changing. It's amazing how it changes so quickly. Wow. That is absolutely breathtaking. And I'm sad we didn't see the full moon either. What a pity. We'll have to get it next time. We don't often get to see the moon, unfortunately. Most of the evenings seem to be so cloudy out here. It doesn't get much... I was just about to say it doesn't get much better than that, but it seems as though I'm going to have to eat my words, because I can see where Ralph is. He's just off in the distance, and he's got another view.
Yes, folks, welcome back, and look at this fantastic sunset. It is absolutely stunning, and I just need to be slightly careful here because we've got a big bull elephant in must. So he's making his way across towards us. I'm just talking with my voice raised a little bit, just so that he also knows that I'm here, folks. But if he does turn, I will be starting the vehicle and driving away. If Manu can just show, look on the back legs. He's in full must, and that's obviously why he's joined this herd. So he's looking to court a female, and he's got massive tusks, and we don't want to be taking any chances. So if he turns towards us and makes out as if he wants to be a little bit naughty, buddy, then I will be moving off. Okay, folks, so because we don't like confrontation with the animals, and we do understand that they are a little bit more aggressive when they're in this phase. Keep walking, buddy. And he's a very big, beautiful elephant. Wow. But he can also be a little bit naughty when he's in this phase. Okay, folks, I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to turn around so you can have a look. I just wanted to get out of their way because the herd was getting a little bit agitated with this bull as well. And then that can result in him taking it out on us. So we've got a little bit more space now between us, and then now we can relax a bit. shame. We did miss that perfect sunset, but look at this. A whole herd of elephants walking past, and now we're in lovely, safe distance. He was just looking a little bit mischievous, and in that frame of mind we don't want to press the subject, because he's obviously trying his luck with the females here, and they can very often turn him down, and then he can take it out on the next best thing that comes along, and that can be a vehicle or anything like that. And if you're on foot, you're also wanting to just avoid bull elephants like that. But wow, look at this. We can enjoy this fantastic movement of these elephants coming through. Now, I just wanted to recap a little bit from our drive this afternoon, because it seems that we were talking about it here on board, myself and Manu, and we've had an absolutely magnificent drive today. We've had elephants and buffalo and lion and black rhino, and it seems Tristan has completed the puzzle of the big five, as we were talking about earlier, and he's got your leopard. So there are people that very often brag about going on one game drive and finding the big five. Now, it's not about bragging rights, but I think we've done pretty well today. Wouldn't you think so, Manu? So it is absolutely stunning from up here. Just beyond these elephants, off in that grassland there, is where we did spot those black rhino, but even from here they're very difficult to see. So we just sit with the elephants and watch them pass through. You see this guy that he's not thinking straight, and he is really pushing his luck with the females. So they can very often get very agitated when there's a bull like this around, and he's obviously not a small fellow either, so he can be rather pushy, and they can also be rather pushy back. So that's just why we took a little bit of evasive action, because we don't want to be getting in between that kind of behavior with elephants. And sometimes you can just be in the middle of it. Now, Fezzi, you're asking why or how I knew that he was getting agitated. Well, just before you came to us on screen, he dropped every little blade of grass that he was busy with, and he concentrated totally on us, and he started to walk with a lot of intent towards the vehicle. And that's normally the sign with elephants, that they have taken notice of you and they're coming over to say hello. Now, normally that's not a problem, because elephants are very inquisitive, and it's lovely to have them around, and they are curious about the smells of the vehicle and probably the noise that we make and weird and wonderful sounds that humans produce. We probably also smell quite bad. And so they are very curious, and they can come towards you, but with what we know about this bull and the generality of bull elephants in must, we don't want to be hanging around a big bull like this that's firstly intent on coming towards us, and secondly, we know that when they are in must, they have a slight inkling of being a little bit aggressive, because they're not getting their way with the girls, and so they want to take it out on us. And what Manu's showing you there is he's leaking from his penis constantly, and that is a sure way of knowing that this elephant is in must. You can actually smell it as well. So it's a very strong musty smell, musk, not must, a musk with a K, not, but it's very close in the words. And you can actually see it, you can smell it, and you can see in his behavior as well. Right, everybody, that's the wonderful view that we have, but we're going to send you on south, all the way back to South Africa, with Steve, who's got one of those tiny little